welcome to Short Story Scene. I'm your host, the storyteller, and here we have a tale called Inferno by Dante Alighieri, Canto 22. I have here while seen horsemen moving camp, begin the storm in their muster make, and sometimes staring off for their escape. Van couriers and I see upon his land, O Aretines and foragers go forth, tournaments sicken, and with the joustings run, sometimes with trumpets and sometimes with bells, with kettle drums and signals of the castles, and with our own and with outlandish things, but never yet with a bagpipe so uncouth did I see horsemen move, nor infantry, nor ship by any sign of land or star. We went upon our way with the 10 demons, savage company, but in the church with saints, and in the taverns with gluttons, and upon the pitch was my intent, to see the whole condition of Bulgaria, and of the people who therein were burned, even as the dolphins when they make a sign to mariners by arching of the back, that they should consul take the save their vessel. Thus sometimes, to alleviate his pain, one of the sinners would display his back, and in less time conceal it than it lightens. As on the brink of the water in the ditch, the frogs that stand only with their muzzles out, and so that they hide their feet in other bulk, so upon every side of the sinner stood, but ever as the barbarcia near them came, thus underneath the boiling they withdrew. I saw that still my heart doth shudder as it, one waiting thus, even as it comes to pass. One frog remains, and down another dives. The Grafiscan, who most confronted him, grappled him with his tresses, smeared with pitch, and drew him up so that he seemed an otter. I knew before the names of all of them, so I noted them when they were chosen, and when they called each other, listening how. I, Rebecanti, say that thou do lay thy claws upon him, so that thou mayest flay him, cried along together in the accused ones. And I, my master, see to it, if thou canst, and thou mayest know who is the luckless wight, and come into the adversary's hands. Near the side of him my leader drew, asked to him whence he was, and he replied, I in the kingdom of Narvir was born. My mother placed my servant to a lord, for she was born me a ribald knave, a destroyer of himself and of his things. Then I domestic was of good King Tybalt, and I set me there in practice bartery, for which I pay reckoning in the heat, and curcitio from those a mouth projected. On either side a tusk as in a boar caused him to feel how one of them could rip. Along malicious cats the mouse had come, but Barbarcia clasped him in his arms and said, Stand ye aside while I enfork him. And to my master he turned round his head. Ask him again, he said, and more thou wish I know from him before someone destroy him. The guide, now tell then that the other culprits, knowest thou any one who is Latin under the pitch? And he I separated lately from one who was neighbor to it. Would I still were covered up in him, and I should fear not either claw nor hook. And Lebicoco, we have borne too much, and with his grapnel seized him by the arm, so that by rendering he tore off a tendon. Ec Dragnoso wished to pounce upon him down at the legs, whence there the Curion turned around and round about the evil look, when they again somewhat were pacified of him, who still was looking at his wound, demanded my conductor without stay, who was the one from unluckiless parting thou stayest thou hast made to come ashore? He replied, I was the Friar Gomita, he the gullible vessel of all fraud, who had the enemies of his Lord in hand, and dealt so that with each exults thereat. Money he took and let them smoothly off, and he says in the other offices, a barter was he, not mean but sovereign. For goers with him one Don Michael Zanch and Logo Doro in Sardinia, to gossip never do their tongues feel tired. O me, so that one who grinds his teeth, still farther would I speak. But I am afraid, lest he to scratch my edge be making ready. And the grand provost turned the forforeal, who rolled his eyes about as if to strike, said, Stand aside there, thou malicious bird, if you desire either to see or hear. The terror-stricken recommenced thereon, Tuscans and Lombards, and I will make one come, and let the malebranch cease a little, so that they may not their revenges fear, and I down sitting in the very place. For one that I am will make 7 come, and I shall willest, and our custom is to do whenever one of us comes out. Cagnoso at the words his muzzle lifted, shaking his head, and said, Just hear the trick with he was thought of, down to throw himself. Whence he who snares the great ambience had responded, I by far too cunning am, and I produce for mine a greater sadness. Allegiant held not, but running counter unto the rest, said to him, If thou dive, I will not follow thee upon the gallop. But I will beat my wings above the pitch, and height be left, and be the bank shield, to see if thou alone thus countervailest. O thou who readest, thou shalt hear new sport, each of the other side his eyes averted. He first, who most reluctant was to do it, the nervouser selected well his time, planted his feet on the land, and in the moment leaped and released himself from their design, whereat each one was suddenly stung with shame, and he must who have caused of the defeat. Therefore he moved and cried, Thou art a Erchtern. But little it availed, for the wings could not outstrip the fear, and the other one went under, and flying upward he his breast directed. Not otherwise, and duck upon the sudden dives under, when the falcon is approaching, and upward he returneth across the weary, infiltrate at the mockery, Calcabrina, flying behind him, follow close, desirous, and others should escape to have a quarrel. And when the berater had disappeared, and he turned his talons upon his companion, and grappled with him right above the moat. But Sooth and others were dothie sparhark, and clapper and claw him well, and both of them fell in the middle of the boiling pond. A sudden incessor was the heat, and nevertheless rising there was not. At such a degree they had their wings belimed. Lamenting with the others, Barbarcia made for them, flying in the other side with all their gaffs, and very speedily. This side and that they had their posts descended. They stretched their hooks towards the pitch, and snarled, who had already baked within the crust. And in the manner bruised did we leave them. And that concludes our story, Inferno by Dante Alighieri, Canto 22. If you like this content and would like to support it, please head on to Patreon. That is www.patreon.com/shortstoryscene. I'd like to thank Drac for all his help. And thank you all for listening. See you next episode. Bye.